California's Gold is produced in association with KCET Los Angeles and is seen statewide on California Public Television. This series is endorsed by the California Teachers Association, the California School Boards Association, and the California Library Association. They're some of the most beautiful and awe-inspiring photographs ever taken. They not only capture the spectacular natural beauty of the American West, but they give us a sense of place, of scale. These photographs are bigger than life and were taken by Ansel Adams, who over the years became a true American icon. He was passionate about his life's work and felt most at home in Yosemite National Park. His photographs of Yosemite are themselves iconic. In fact, Ansel Adams' Yosemite landscape photographs are some of the most recognizable in the world. Okay, our Yosemite adventure begins. Another beautiful day in paradise. It's early morning. I'm standing here in Yosemite National Park, and this is going to be a very exciting day for all of us because this is going to be a combination adventure dealing with natural history and human history. And here to be our guide today and kind of take us through this adventure is Michael Adams, the son of iconic nature photographer Ansel Adams, who, Michael, in his own way, he not only increased awareness of Yosemite when he was alive, but his photographs are still doing that today.
Absolutely right. He's known for Yosemite, and Yosemite is known for Ansel Adams in many ways. And we have the Ansel Adams Gallery now, and the history behind that's very interesting.
And that is very interesting because here is the Ansel Adams Gallery today, and boy, look at the location. Couldn't get any better than this.
No, it's pretty nice.
But you're starting us off out here because this is a part of the history I didn't know. This used to be known as
sort of an artist's residence. This was the original government center. And history-wise, my grandfather started here in a tent in 1902 over in the old village, which is still there. The only structure remaining is the chapel. But in the 1920s, the Park Service asked the people that were working over there and had buildings to move to this new area. And my grandfather did, Harry Best, and he opened this gallery here. He called it Best Studio. And right next door was the Boyson Studio, and the post office was built. And there was a Foley studio on the other side, and then a Pillsbury studio, and ultimately the museum. So
there were a number of photographers and artists right up and down this area in the early days, back in the early 1900s.
In the 1920s is when this was built, in this area. And the Park Service wanted to concentrate, I guess, the commercial development here with the museum and the post office and various shops from the various artists that were in existence then.
Now, you mentioned all these other artists. I'm not a connoisseur of these names, but Ansel Adams' name survived. Why did Ansel Adams become so well known and all of these others kind of fade away?
Essentially, the others died out. There weren't family people that kept them going. In Ansel's case, he married Harry Best's daughter, my mother, and in 1936, when Harry Best died, my mother and father took over this business. It was known as Best Studio. And when my wife and I took the business over from the family in 1971, we changed the name to the Ansel Adams Gallery, and that's how it is today. People know Ansel Adams. People are not aware of Harry Best, and of course he had a finite number of paintings that are long gone.
Right. So these other photographers and artists were good.
Yes.
But Ansel Adams survived.
Ansel became a very well-known photographer. This was a wonderful place to live, and he had that opportunity because the family had the business here. He did a lot of work in Yosemite, as you know, and was able to utilize that in his growth as a photographer, and became well known for Yosemite and well known for environmental work and for the work he's done all over the United States.
Okay, we are inside the gallery, and Michael, when you walk in, you are drawn immediately to this back wall here with your dad's name up and these beautiful black and white photographs on display.
Yes. These are what we call the special edition images, and they're the only Ansel Adams photographs today that you can buy that are from the original negative, but printed today by Alan Ross, who's a photographer, good friend of Ansel's. He worked for Ansel over the years, and he does this special edition series. And they're only available here through the Ansel Adams Gallery.
Now, how did you choose? Well, first off, here's a great picture right in the middle that kind of anchors the whole thing. This is not in Yosemite, though.
No, this is over on the east side of the Sierras.
Oh, it is? Okay.
It's south of Lavinia, south of Mono Lake.
And that's Ansel up on top of his old Woody.
An old Woody, an old 1946 Pontiac station wagon. And just that little elevation, 6 or 8 feet up on there, made a huge difference in many of the photographs.
Look at the size of that camera.
It's 8 by 10.
All right, now, how did you choose? How many of these did you say there are?
Well, there's 24 at any one time are available. We have a few others that we can shift in and out. But these 24 were selected as being sort of the icon photographs of Yosemite that people recognize and that Ansel thought a lot of, and that are saleable in a sense, that people really enjoy having on their wall.
And it just proves that they're timeless, they're ageless in their beauty.
They certainly are, and I hope today as we go around the valley we will see some of these sites as we move around, and you'll see these images in a little different perspective.
Yeah, because that's what this adventure is really all about. We are getting ready to leave the gallery and actually go out into Yosemite itself and visit some of the actual places that Ansel Adams stood with his camera to photograph, to capture some of these iconic, wonderful, beautiful pictures of Yosemite National Park. This is just the beginning. The real adventure is yet to come. Well, as we start our Yosemite adventure, we didn't have to come very far. We're just about a half a mile from the Ansel Adams Gallery. We're still on the Yosemite Valley floor, and there it is, Michael, Half Dome, and we could spend the whole day here because Ansel loved this place right here.
We can certainly do that. This is Zwanny Meadow, and there are many of his photographs that were taken right from this site.
Right
somewhere
from
in this.
Here.
I'm not sure I can find the tripod holes, but they're not too far away. But pictures of Half Dome, pictures of Glacier Point from this site are well known of his. Also, Washington Column and the Royal Arches, and there's a Royal Arch Falls there that's not flowing right now.
So he had, do you think did he explore Yosemite Valley and then just kind of in his own mind decide where the best places were?
He explored Yosemite Valley from the first year he got here in 1916, and he knew it very intimately. And when he became more interested in the photography side of it, he knew where to go and he knew what he was interested in. And it wasn't just the huge mountains, it was also the minutiae. He has some wonderful images of just grass and of rock and of lichen and things that were intimate but very important to him.
But as far as Half Dome goes, and boy, that's a massive photograph there. He figured out now this wouldn't necessarily be the right time of day, but you said in certain weather conditions it might be the right time of day.
Yes, normally Half Dome would be an afternoon shot with the light on the dome.
Right on it.
But a snowstorm day, he could be here early in the morning. It's a fascinating area. Rain, snow, it doesn't take the end of the day to get it. It could occur any time, a good time.
But a lot of his photographs, really the power of his photographs depended upon light.
Absolutely, and he would probably tell you that immediately. And the light was what he was very much aware of and knew the best times to get light in various sites around the park here.
And of course, Yosemite is so rich in lighting. The way it changes with the lighting.
And, the Muir talked about the range of light, which is the Sierra Nevada, and Yosemite is just one element of that.
Now, one of the reasons we're starting off here, this shot right here This is your favorite picture that he ever photographed that he ever took.
This was probably one of our favorite, and definitely I have to say my favorite. In 1960, he took a picture of Half Dome with a moon coming up on the left side of it.
It actually was entitled
Moon and Half Dome. But that picture saw the light of day for the first time in our wedding announcement in 1962.
Really?
So
it had never been published?
It had never been
never
published.
Been seen?
Had not been seen by the public. It became one of the more popular images, which we can understand.
And you chose that for your wedding
as our wedding announcement. So we're excited with it, and we always think of that as probably our favorite image.
And standing here, you also have a great story about the heights he would go to, literally and figuratively, to get one of his photographs, and you can really see it from here.
Yes, and probably one of his most famous images was one he took in 1927. He entitled it Monolith, which was the face of Half Dome taken from that ridge line, which we called the diving board. So he would be all
the way up to the top here and was photographing the side of Half Dome.
And this 1927 episode, they climbed up the LeConte Gully, which is just between that point there, Grizzly Peak, and the ridge, and then on up the ridge. And he had glass plates with him, and his next to last glass plate, he put a yellow filter on, took the picture, realized he wasn't going to get what he really wanted, so he changed to a red filter, and the image is a stunning thing. It also was his comment and his decision that probably was the time when he decided photography was going to be his career. He knew what he could get, he knew how to get it in a photograph, and that was kind of the change, 1927. Now, he didn't really go into photography full-time for a few more years, but that was where he recognized that he could visualize what he wanted in the final image
on that particular
photograph.
And I tell you, the other part of that story, though, is just the lengths he would go to. Well, he hiked up all of these places.
Yeah, especially so because there was snow in that canyon. There was a lot of snow up on that area. And the pictures taken from that particular trip, I wouldn't want to be up there in tennis shoes and this kind of thing, the way they were walking in that.
He was not airlifted. He was not driven by chauffeur limousine.
Not at all.
Was it horseback?
No, it was his own 2 feet.
He would walk it.
Walked it.
Carrying that big camera?
In that case he was, but later on when he was in the backcountry, he used burros to carry the cameras.
Okay, next stop. We've just come a couple of miles. We're still on the valley floor, and when we pulled up in the car and started walking across this meadow, you made a couple of comments, Michael.
One was that there was a lot of gooseberry we were walking on.
Yeah, we cut through a whole field of sticky gooseberries.
And the other is that there's an amazing number of trees that I didn't remember from the early photographs, so which is natural.
Yeah,
but you still get...
It looks a little different as far as the trees are concerned, but of course now we're looking at another one of Ansel's favorites. What are we looking at?
Cathedral rocks and cathedral spires to the left.
Okay.
And these were wonderful afternoon shots for the most part that he loved, plus winter didn't make any difference what time of day.
Well, now we're here in the morning.
I know, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. The shadows really, look, you can see a reflection over there.
I think that the iconic ones that people remember were done at certain times, and it's beautiful all the time.
Yeah. Now, how much time would he spend? I mean, how many different variations on the same theme would Ansel see through his eyepiece there?
That's kind of interesting, because he would come to a site like this and he might set it up as a horizontal image. And then he might really like to focus in on the spires, so he'd make that a vertical with maybe even a telephoto or at least a different length lens.
So he was looking at the big picture, he was looking at minute parts of a smaller picture.
And then one of the other interesting things is he didn't bracket his pictures to change different exposure. He knew what he wanted, but he usually took 2 or 3 of an image to protect himself, because he said somebody's always going to drop a negative. So if he had 2 or 3 of the same image,
the exact same image, the same light setting, exposure, everything.
And a lot of times he would do that just to have the protection of another image. But again, he might have a wonderful image here, take a couple, and decide, you know, I'm going to move that camera 6 inches and set up for another one and emphasize a different thing.
Do you think he might? I'm trying to find, before this day's over, I want to find an exact spot where he might have stood. Would he have been right in here?
He certainly could have been.
Right here?
Right here. I mean, the pictures that I know of had water in the foreground, so we don't see it now. Well, that would certainly limit where you stand.
But see, that's part of the changing face of Yosemite over the years as well.
Absolutely.
And it's not necessarily a bad thing.
No.
It's an evolutionary thing.
And these meadows are being encroached upon by trees, which in the early days, the Indians used to burn them off all the time. So the meadows were much bigger. Today, they're encroached upon. However, the National Park Service is doing its, making an effort to keep a lot of the unwanted out of these meadows.
Yeah.
And keep them more pristine and more like they originally were.
Okay, so we're ending up here looking at, and again, the technical name is
Cathedral Rocks and Cathedral Spires.
We're walking over a bridge that, according to Michael, is a very important bridge as far as Ansel Adams' photographs are concerned, and we should stand where? Right about here. This is what gives us that vantage point.
This is the El Capitan Bridge, and in 1939, Ansel took a picture from this bridge entitled Merced River Cliffs Autumn. It was in the fall of 1939, and it had a spectacular image showing the water and then the cliffs in the background.
Now, these trees weren't this big then.
No, these trees everything's growing.
Yeah, but this is the Merced River.
This is the Merced River.
And he just stood on this
He stood on the bridge in those days and took this image. And it's one of his well-known images. He liked it very much. It's not my favorite, but I do like it.
Most of his iconic photographs are black and white. Did he take color photographs?
I would say all of his iconic photographs were black and white. And the reason for that was he had no control over color. He took a lot of color images in his lifetime, but he could take the picture. He would have to send the film to Kodak for development. He did not develop his own color, therefore he did not have the control that he insisted on and that he could obtain with his black and white.
So he actually he processed himself. Where?
Absolutely.
Here?
He did some in
Yosemite?
Yosemite, he did some in San Francisco before he moved to Carmel, and for the latter years of his life, from 62 on, he had a wonderful darkroom in Carmel that he
actually went through the whole process. He
absolutely
processed the photographs himself.
And he would not sign one unless he had completed not only the negative, but the development of the print. And of course, he wouldn't do the spotting necessarily or the mounting, but it was his image all the way to the end.
Now we're right up close to El Cap. And we stopped here because you said Ansel, he liked to shoot big things like this from a distance, but he also liked to be up close like we are right now.
He liked both, but some of his images of El Cap from this site and near here were really just intimate shots of a part of the mountain.
What do you
mean? Like a waterfall,
just
like maybe the top, or the top, those chutes that are going up. Or in the springtime, there's a waterfall that comes over out here, and he would have tight shots of the waterfall and the cliff, not the whole mountain.
So he would get up close like this?
Well, he would be down here with a long lens,
Yeah.
you know, and he'd bring those things in. It wouldn't be the whole mountain, it would be a segment of it.
Now, you pointed out this black spot in the middle, which I've been driving by here for years and never noticed it.
Well, known as the North American Wall, because the Stain area has sort of the shape of North America. I'm sure that the climbers are the ones that called it this. I don't know for sure.
It does.
But
it looks like North America.
it does. And it's one of the walls of El Cap that's very famous for the climbing.
But you know, when you really start to look and put a photographer's hat on your head, you begin to realize the texture and the way the light plays with the shadows.
It's
this
amazing.
would be a photographer's dream, just right here up close like
That's
this.
right. You don't have to go very far, and you stay here during a day, and you've got different shadows from different hours that give you a totally different kind of a feeling of this mountain.
Okay, we've now come off the Yosemite Valley floor, and we are at one of the most, we'll use the word iconic a lot in this adventure,
Yes,
but this is definitely one of the most iconic shots.
This definitely is. This is the tunnel view or the inspiration point view, and probably the most famous and most photographed site in Yosemite Valley.
Every time we come into Yosemite, we stop here to take pictures. There have been millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of photographs taken here, including photographs by your dad.
Ansel took a lot from here. I could remember being with him on a few. I mean, some in the summer with thunderstorms, some in the winter with snow and ice around and cold. But it is just one of those places you come back to. It's so spectacular and it changes all the time.
Now, did he like it for the same reason that everybody else likes it? Just because of the grandeur of it, the depth of it, the different layers of what you see when you're looking out there?
I think so. And also because it changes. Like I said, in the spring the waterfalls are booming and you see, you know, a lot of water, and in the fall the color turns in some of these trees down here. In the late afternoon you might get a wonderful rainbow in Bridalveil Falls, or you might have some of the mountains obscured with clouds, either with a storm in the fall or a winter snowstorm. So it changes all the time.
Yeah. Wow, it's absolutely, you know, I guess when I've been standing here I've always been looking out. But look, the trees down below us are beautiful too.
It's a fantastic sight.
Did he consider this one of his prime spots?
Absolutely, and some of his best known images were taken from this site. Practically right where we're standing.
Okay, this is the first. Ansel Adams' son is taking a photograph of the name of the family?
Ibarras, Martinez, and Alvarez.
Wow. History being made. Now, Michael and I are standing here holding our little digital cameras here. Would Ansel have approved of cameras like this?
You know, I'm asked that all the time, and my gut feeling is that he would have jumped at digital. He would have loved the mechanical.
Really?
He would have been intrigued with the processing in the digital camera.
But
now,
see,
whether
he would have been a film guy, hardcore film guy.
He was film, but he was also very much involved with Polaroid and Polaroid's development. And I think as something new came along, he would have been very excited.
But he wouldn't have been able to develop them, to process them.
You know, Adobe Photoshop is almost the same kind of processing when you really get down to it.
So he would have used Photoshop.
Well, if he'd have found out about it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the option is there to do all of the things that he could do in a darkroom could be done on Adobe.
Wow.
So he wouldn't have lost control of the image.
Yeah.
But I think he would have been fascinated with the process.
Well, we're standing here. We both got our cameras out. We're both going to take digital pictures of. I got mine. I got kind of a wide shot.
I did too.
Two wide shots.
Two wide shots.
Looking out at Half Dome and El Capitan. Now we've come up into high country, and what are we looking at out here, Michael?
We're looking at the Illilouette Canyon, and we're looking across at Mount Stark King, close to us, this dome.
Right out here.
Right out here. And then we're looking at the Clark Range. There's a whole series of mountains, starting with Mount Clark on the end, and going back into the distance there.
Now we're also looking at kind of a side view of Half Dome, which is, I've never been to this. What is this particular location called?
This is Washburn Point, and you're looking at Half Dome from the edge. You're looking across at this shoulder that goes up on Half Dome, and right near the edge, that knife edge, it's called the diving board. And that's where that sort of iconic photograph of Ansel's, the monolith of the side in 1927, that's where he was standing to take that picture.
Now, he also was standing and traveling through this whole area here, wasn't he?
Right. This is an area that was very close to Yosemite Valley and easily accessed in the summer on short hikes or even long hikes, because it was a day or two into the backcountry here to get all the way back to that range that we're seeing in the distance.
So the Clark Range, I'm not familiar with any of those photographs. Did he take a lot of photographs back there?
Yes, and I can show you. He has several of Mount Clark from different directions that are pretty spectacular.
So he liked being in the, I mean, we've spent most of our time on the valley floor. He took a lot of iconic photographs there, but he also liked being in the backcountry.
He liked the backcountry, and I think that he liked it more than in the valley.
Why is that?
Well, it was just a friendly place to be. It was a wonderful place to sit, to sleep, to photograph, The weather was delightful in the summers, and it was thrilling to him.
Yeah.
And he spent a lot of time in the backcountry, not only of Yosemite, but in south of here, in the Kings River Canyon, the Sequoia National Park, the Kern River Canyon, and the Kauai areas. So this is only a little part of it.
Now, you spent a lot of time with him on these trips,
Yes,
didn't you?
I did from an early age, going along as sort of a little kid being shown things, to later on being what I called a camera bearer, helping him carry cameras on various trips.
Didn't get paid to do that,
Didn't
did
get
you?
paid. But I would do it with him on pack trips, with burros, or trips in the car, especially down to the southwest of the United States. I went with him on a number.
So you
of
were
trips.
kind of a cameraman's assistant
There you
as
are.
a young boy.
Unpaid.
And can you remember any of those early Yosemite experiences with your dad? Because I know you were born and raised here. You spent your whole life here.
Right. I remember vaguely. The most important thing was my first camping trip. He took me up to Tuolumne Meadows. We went out by Tioga Pass and camped by a little lake. And the next morning I fell off a log into the freezing water. That I remember very well. And I found out later, because I got some dated photographs, that was 1938. I must have been 5 or 6 years old.
Did he know and fully understand the power of the pictures he was taking?
I don't know, but I think that it was brought out when they dedicated Mount Ansel Adams. A year after he passed away, in Tuolumne Meadows there was an event, and Wallace Stegner, the author from Stanford, came and talked about the two great poets of Yosemite. First, John Muir, and secondly, Ansel Adams. And he felt that this place, and talking about Yosemite, was probably better understood as a result of these two great poets of this area over many years, presenting it to them in the written word and in the photograph.
Wow. John Muir and Ansel Adams, who never met, who lived in different eras and different times, but both of whom
both loved Yosemite, both wrote and photographed it and presented it to the public in a way that's made it one of the most wonderful places to experience, to come.
This iconic place, these iconic photographs, this iconic man who captured for us and for future generations Yosemite in all of its grandeur. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Huell Hauser, and I sure hope you enjoyed our visit to Yosemite National Park and this tribute to legendary photographer Ansel Adams. Now, if you'd like to go on this adventure again, share it with family or friends, or more importantly, donate a copy to your local school or library, well, it's available on DVD. All you have to do is call 1-800-266-5727. And we'll be glad to send it to you right away.